there, guys. Ken here, your thrifty apprentice, and welcome back to the studio. In today's video, we are going to be doing an apple illustration. I am using Fabriano Studio 25% cotton rag watercolor paper, a cup of creative expression watercolor brushes, which I've told you guys in previous videos. I picked those up from Jerry's Autorama. I'm using Miya Himi 18 jelly cup gouache set. I'm going to be using a Fineliner. I'm going to be using a white gel pen, and I'm also going to be using Prismacolor color pencils. So those are the supplies I'll be using. Now, of course, you do not have to have the exact brands that I'm using if you would like to attempt this composition. And please always remember that if the speed paint moves too fast for you, you can control the speed of the video from the gear at the bottom of your YouTube player. So here I taped down a piece of that Fabriano Studio paper and sketched in an outline or traced an outline of an apple, sort of like the one that you would give your teacher on the first day of school if you were in kindergarten or second grade. So we got that taped down, sketched in, and then I took the sky blue, acid blue color from the set, used that to do the background. And of course, I'm going to be using variations of the rose and the crimson mixed together. Alternating between that mixture and the regular crimson in order to do the apple. And then we'll be using the pale green and the grass green in the leaves in order to get those accomplished. Using a credit card scraper to scrape in veins when we get to the leaves as normal. So it shouldn't be anything too far outside of the realm of what you guys see me do when I'm using watercolor. Of course, the difference is this is gouache, which is an opaque watercolor. Almost the same beast, but not quite. And since I'm on that subject, I will go ahead and let you guys know that I am working on an extreme beginner's gouache course that I'm hoping to have launched by the end of the year, maybe the beginning of next year. You guys just pray for me and stay tuned for information on that in case you've ever been interested in using gouache. It'll be a resource. It won't cost much at all, and you will have a lifetime subscription to that course if you decide to buy it once I launch. So again, stay tuned for information coming up on that. I'm hoping to have it finished soon. I'm in the course of working on it now. And you know, just to throw it out there, this would be a course on using gouache the way I like to use it, which is in a much more illustrative form, and the ways that I will wet that down and use gouache with watercolor techniques in order to pull off the composition I'm trying to accomplish. So yeah, if you think it's something you may be interested in, and again, it's a extreme beginners course, it should be available soon. So make sure to keep your ear to the ground for that. Now here you see that I originally laid down the first layer with a mixture of the rose and the crimson, really light, really watery. Then I went back on top of that and laid down a wash of that same color, simply because I wanted to try to get some of the streaks out that I had made with the gouache. Now, gouache is opaque, and this jelly gouache is actually a thick paint. So in order to use gouache or jelly gouache in a watercolor way, you really have to add water to it in order to get it to operate and to control it the way that you want to, especially if you're ever expecting anything like flow per se, because gouache does not flow. It puts you more in the mind of an acrylic or an oil. The difference is it's water soluble, and it works with it has all of the same properties that a watercolor has. So if you're into opaque watercolors, I think this is something you may want to give a try. If you're into gouache or oil painting, but you don't like all of the supplies you need to get that done, if you like the readiness that comes along with painting in watercolor, then I do believe that gouache would be something that you may be interested in. And stay tuned for that course coming up, because you know, you never ever know. You just never know. So here I'm laying down the first layer of color onto the leaves, and I did use the credit card scraper in order to add the veins in. Again, I'll keep reiterating that gouache is 98% like watercolor, so most of the tips and techniques that I use with the watercolor, I can use in gouache painting as well. The difference is the more you layer, the more I can layer, the more opacity and texture I can get with a gouache versus a watercolor. Just something to think about. So here I'm going to go ahead and paint in the stem of the apple that the leaves happen to be kind of wrapped around with the burnt sienna, and then I'm going to use burnt umber as the shadow color in order to darken that, give it a little definition. Now, as we paint this composition, you'll see me go back and forth, several different times, adding layers to the apple itself in order to increase the saturation, increase the depth and color and value. Again, I'm using this gouache in a watered down watercolor type way. Therefore, I am going to have to layer it a lot more using it like this than I would if I was using it, say, straight from the pan. More as a gouache in its thick, creamy form. Now, this Miya Himi gouache is really good. I like it. I like it a lot, guys. And I will have a review coming up for it a couple of videos from now. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. And if you guys keep in mind, I did review the Master's Touch craft gouache set. Now, this, in my opinion, is a much better gouache set. Much more pigmented, rich in color. You get much more paint in this set than you will in that tube set of Master's Touch. And then eventually we'll also be looking at other gouache sets coming up. But I really wanted to put this one through the ringers and give it its tried and trues, because I do believe that this is the gouache set I will be using for the gouache, the opaque watercolor extreme beginners course that I was telling you guys I'm going to be releasing, and that will be on Teachable. But again, I'll tell you more about that when it approaches time, when we are approaching time for that course to come out. So now here I wanted to go ahead and throw in shadows once I felt like I had the first layer, even and uniformed enough. Not as much water being added to this layer. I'm really kind of painting directly from the palette with the crimson at this point, simply because I wanted that color to be really, really rich and deep and saturated. I was going to layer thinner layers of gouache on top of it just to make sure that this layer was showing through. So I really did want to, kind of get it nice and thick and opaque so that we can get some roundness and some volume to the apple. Now here you're going to see I'm going in and adding those additional thin layers of crimson mixed with that rose. So I decided that I needed a little bit more punch with the red because I did put that rose in the mixture to begin with. So I grabbed my Ganze Tanbai watercolor set. And the reason I decided to pair that with the gouache is because those Tanbai paints have a bit of an opacity to me. And I really look at them more like a gouache ink sort of paint than necessarily a watercolor. Now, everybody has different experiences. Everybody paints differently and use mediums in different ways. So this is what I decided to do because I knew it would add a little bit more punch, make it a little bit more pungent and beautiful and red. So I just went in with that. I mixed that red color from the Ganze Tanbai set with the crimson and the rose that I was already using from the Himi set in order to get that really rich color. And in my opinion, that inky gouache watercolor sort of helped fill in the tooth that I may have been missing. So after I got the color right on the core of the apple that I wanted, I decided I would go in and lay down an additional wash of color to the leaves in order, punch it up. Well, punch it up, make it more vibrant and bright. I really love the way those leaves turn out. I think that credit card scraper is a great way to add detail to any leaf element. So if you haven't tried it, try it. All you gotta do is cut up a piece of old gift card or old credit card, and that is a trick that I picked up from Lindsay the Frugal Crafter. Very, very innovative, very, very smart, and very, very talented artist. Check her out. Check the Frugal Crafter. The Frugal Crafter. So, yeah. Here I have switched over to using color pencils. Now these are the Prismacolor pencil, and of course Prismacolors are a semi-opaque slash transparent pencil. It adds a little bit more body than most other colored pencils to a composition when you're using it. Now a lot of people don't like Prismacolor, and I understand because it's a soft core pencil. The lids do break really easily, especially when they're sharpened to too fine of a point. However, personally, I've learned after using them for so long how to get around the breakage issue. And I love them. I will grab Prismacolor in a minute. Of course, I do have several other brands that I love just as well. So, yeah. Here I decided to go ahead and lay in extra color for the leaves, and I chose several different colors from my Prismacolor set just to go in and add a little bit more body to certain sections, add a little bit more depth and color to shadow areas, maybe add a little highlight here and there to areas that needed to be brought out of being so uniform with the background. And I love colored pencils on top of gouache. It's probably one of my favorite combinations, and it's the combination that I use most times when I'm painting with gouache. Of course, I have more of an illustrative painting style when it comes to gouache, so this works. That combination of those two products work really well, although you can use things like chalk pastels or oil pastels or even watercolor pencils on top of your gouache if you chose to. So I decided that I would go ahead and throw in the shadow. We wanted to ground the apple to the painting instead of just having it kind of float around in the middle of the page. So I mixed my burnt sienna and ultramarine blue in order to get me a grayish black color there. And then eventually I am going to go in with a black Prismacolor pencil in order to add a little bit more body to that shadow, just so it'll be a little richer, and add a little bit more shadow directly under the apple itself, just so you can show where that object is actually touching the ground. I'll be honest, guys, I actually the composition was simple, and sometimes with the simple compositions, those are the ones that require the most work and attention to detail, because you don't have a lot of things going on in the background or even in the foreground to confuse the viewer's eye. You literally have to add the detail. So once I was happy with the coloration on the leaves and the apple and the shadows, I decided to go in and throw in some highlights with a white pencil. That Prismacolor white pencil is probably one of the best colored white pencils out there. Very opaque, right alongside Color Soft Durant Color Soft in my opinion. Fineliner black marker I used to fine line the entire composition, which of course made it feel a little bit more illustrative and took it away from being real. But again, this is gouache, and I tend to paint in a more illustrative style when I use gouache and color pencils together. So guys, that's gonna wrap it up. You're gonna see me throw in some major highlights with a white gel pen, and that's gonna pretty much be it. If you like anything that you saw in this video, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Remember that giving the videos a thumb up helps with the algorithm, and it's gonna keep me coming back making more videos for you guys. Share the video. Remember that sharing is caring. Don't forget to follow us on the Thrifty Apprentice Facebook page as well as Instagram. Go ahead and catch the link for the new Facebook group at the bottom of every video. In the description you can find a link to my most recommended and used supplies. And please remember, as I tell you guys at the end of every single video, just keep painting, my friends.